Hi, this is Jennie Walker, and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today I have with me for the second time Chris Brempel. He is behind the new exhibit called the Nanny Shmatte, which is the outfits that the nanny wore. That's the character that Fran Drescher played during her hit TV series. An exhibit of those costumes that she wore, and he's here to give us an update on the project because he's here in the LA area and now in Pasadena with me. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Jenny. It's nice to be back.
Thanks. What do you think of this Pasadena weather?
Oh, I love it. So good. It just, if I think about the weather in Germany, it's like, I don't want to go back.
What's it like right now there?
It's about 30 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah, and snow and rain, this kind of disgusting gray winter, whatever.
Well, here there's lots of sunshine to go around.
I know. I don't want to leave.
Can share my sunshine with everyone. So, Chris, you were with us in March of this year earlier, and you were sharing with the listeners a little bit about your project. And obviously, in the months that have transpired, there's been some updates. So I wanted to bring people an update on where you are with your project. And for those who are listening for the first time, if you can just tell people about the project, and we'll go from there.
Sure. The Nanny Shmatte is going to be a new and unique fashion exhibition showcasing the Emmy Award-winning styling by Brenda Cooper and iconic looks from the hit 1990s TV show The Nanny. It's being produced in time for a 2020 debut in Manhattan, coinciding with New York's Fashion Week next year in fall. The exhibit will feature hundreds of haute couture and ready-to-wear outfits and accessories from the 1980s and 1990s with some of the most iconic looks from the show from fashion designers like Moschino, Todd Oldham, Lacroix, to name just a few. And it's going to be exciting and really big. And for it's not only going to be for the Nanny fan per se, but it's going to be also for fashion designers, people who are very interested in vintage clothing, especially anybody who's interested in fashion, and so many other people. It's going to be a huge event, and it's going to be just glowing and sparkling and
glowing and sparkling. I love that. Well, it's interesting. The reason, Chris, I like having you on this podcast is because, as someone who is a Moschino collector myself and reseller, I deal with clothes of every type, every imaginable kind, from things that are very common to the super special and super rare pieces of Moschino. And in the whole reselling field, there's so many different avenues and reasons why people look for things. And, designers often look to the past for inspiration. They want to see what successful designers have done that came before them. And then you have people that I think it's fair to say get obsessed with a particular brand and they become collectors. And the only place you can get these pieces is from people like us, from resellers. You're out there trying to find collectors and resellers and find these pieces and pretty much recreate the past. And so I like for people to know that, who are reselling or who have consignment shops, that you might actually have something pretty rare, pretty sought after if you have some vintage Moschino or vintage Todd Oldham, Christian Lacroix in your possession, because part of the value in clothing, is provenance, but also, where else. What else could make it special, and where pieces have been featured in shows like The Nanny, or they've been in a fashion exhibit, those are the kinds of things that can help drive up the price and desirability. So having said all that, tell us more about the exhibit and the exciting pieces that you're pulling together. I know Vintage Moschino is one of them, so you could kind of tell us where you are, how you're going about finding these amazing looks and for the exhibit.
Yeah, Vintage Moschino is a big part of the exhibit. She mainly she wore huge designers, but Moschino was the one that she wore the most, and for someone who's interested and loves Moschino, vintage Moschino, all the Franco Moschino stuff. It's very interesting and it's a lot of fun to source these things. And it took a lot of time and a lot of money, to be honest, to gather all these costumes. I have been looking all over the web. I went to private collections. I went to stores around the world to pick specific pieces that I found online or in these stores, and took them home. We kind of stopped purchasing these costumes for the exhibit because we have gathered we bought I don't know, around 70 pieces so far. And we have people from all over the world loaning costumes to this exhibition. So we count that number of 120 pieces so far because people, after I've been to Pasadena and your home to see your Moschino collection.
It's quite a collection.
In March,
they tell me.
Oh, it is.
You're still eyeing that jacket over there, I see.
I'm eyeing all the pieces over there. No, I did a live video on Instagram and I asked for a skirt, for a jacket that I have and that she wore on air. And it was I don't know, 2 days, 3 days later, this girl from Austria just texted me on Instagram and sent me 1 million pictures of the collection that she has because she's a big Nanny fan, and we connected and we stayed in touch, and she offered to loan these costumes, and she not only does she have costumes and clothing pieces but also props and plates and pictures and whatever they used on the show, on set, as props.
My gosh.
It's amazing. It's so cool. So
a super fan has been born.
yeah. I didn't know that there was someone else out there. Who,
you thought you were the only one.
I thought I was the only one. Yeah. No, but sourcing these things took a lot of time. But it is fun. It is so much fun. I'll tell you. It's the best thing ever. And I was never really into fashion. I love to wear the fashion that I see, and I love to buy it. But I was never I never wanted to work in fashion. That has changed in the past 3 years because I came across so many gorgeous pieces that I can't help it but want to work with them. This is just something that I don't know. I never thought that it would be possible for me to love it so much.
Well, the power of Instagram is pretty amazing. Now, I know that for those of you who have not followed Chris, his Instagram is called, you simplified it to the Nanny exhibit.
Yeah,
so
because it's easier for people to find.
Okay.
Instead of the Nanny Shmatte, because it's a Yiddish word, and it means old rag, which refers to the show, because she was Jewish and she used all these Yiddish words all the time. So I thought it was a nice gesture to just to honor the story of the show. And the Instagram account is called the Nanny Exhibit.
Okay.
Just simple as that. Yeah.
So tell us the kinds of things that people can find on that Instagram account.
Oh, they can find, information and a link to our website, the YouTube channel that I started, and they can see pictures of the clothes that are going to be on display, and they can see me going to all the events that Cancer Schmancer has and Fran and stuff. So it's because the whole exhibit, portions of the proceeds from the Nanny exhibit are going straight to Cancer Schmancer, Fran Drescher's Cancer Foundation. So it's a good thing also, and I'm trying to attend every event that they host to show my support and to show people that it's important, that it's not only about fashion but also cancer research.
So give the listeners an idea of how do you envision this exhibit? What are people going to see, and where will it take place?
It will take place in New York,
Okay.
and if all goes well, we want to move it to LA too, and then a couple of other cities in the States, and maybe Europe and Asia. But that's really far away for now. So it's gonna be opening. It's gonna open its doors in New York, in Manhattan, preferably, and people are going. If you visit the exhibit, you will enter the show. It's like you're going on set. It's like do you know the intro of the Nanny?
Oh yeah.
So
Sure.
I envision this kind of like being the intro of the show, and then it's gonna be colorful. It's gonna be completely colorful, and like the clothes themselves, and I don't like. It's all in my head. It's just like it's a little hard for me to express because it changed. It has changed.
Right, it's evolving.
Over time. It's evolving.
But essentially,
so,
you're going to see the costumes that she wore, not necessarily the actual pieces, but you've gotten the same pieces.
I've gotten the same pieces
right.
of that designer, but it's not actually the clothes that she wore.
Right.
Although we are going to display some of the originally worn pieces.
Good. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because
access.
we are in touch. We have access, and we are in touch with the stylist who won the Emmy for it, Brenda Cooper.
Okay. And Brenda.
And hello, Brenda. And some other people around the world who purchased some of the originally worn pieces that they sold to benefit Cancer Schmatte, and they got in touch with us, and they want to loan these pieces to the exhibit. So there's going to be a few pieces in the exhibit that were actually worn by Fran.
That's terrific. As a humongous Fran Drescher fan, and I loved The Nanny, and I actually went to a taping of that show years and years ago.
I'm so jealous. Oh my God.
You know what I did? I tried to find, I was going through some old paperwork. I was trying to find some information on when I had gone. I've yet to find it, but in theory, it's somewhere in my madness that is my life. But I'm a hoarder, basically, of memories. And so I have, like, every piece of paper known to man related to my life. But I haven't found it yet. But, no, I'm a big fan. And, I mean, it's... At the time, it just seemed so groundbreaking in its time, and it was groundbreaking. And that character, she was beautiful. First of all, she was beautiful to look at. She was hilarious. She was completely unique. There was no one who looked like her and sounded like her. And then dressed, the stylist, Brenda Cooper. I mean, the dressing was just so extraordinary, and her clothes were so much fun. They were as fun as she was. And what's interesting is, whatever genius that they decided on to create this look is in no way did these loud looks take away. It just enhanced all that she was, and she's a big personality. So, it could have, in theory, overshadowed that character, but in no way did that happen. It just was the most perfect note to hit to emphasize who that character was through those clothes. And, you can close your eyes. Yeah, absolutely.
She is the one that created the whole character, clothing-wise, and she did an amazing job. And I think there's a good reason that she won the Emmy for it. And
the classic turtlenecks I found out about was... there was I've got to get Brenda on the show, but there was a whole thing behind these use of these turtlenecks, because if you think about it, you go back and look at the show, there's a million turtlenecks in here that it's almost like it extends the outfit all the way up, if that makes sense. And it just serves her so well.
There was a reason for it. Because some of the pieces she wore were very sexy and almost too sexy for a nanny. So Brenda thought about it, and this is something that Brenda talks about on her channel all the time. So I can easily if I talk about it. I'm not giving something away that's not
No
supposed
secrets here.
Yeah. So she combined it with a turtleneck to make it look not so sexy, you know. So because it was inappropriate for a nanny to
that makes sense.
That sexy, and then she just created the look with the turtleneck, and it's just it was groundbreaking. It was like to this day, it's just something that completes the look totally.
It is. I had this woman. I say this woman. I had a former super famous model in my consignment shop the other day. I say the other day, last year, and and we got to talking about clothing, and she says, "You'd be surprised how few pieces of clothing that I have." And she says, "You know, my favorite is just a classic turtleneck," and it is definitely one of those pieces that people almost forget about. You know, and it definitely frames the face, and I think it's wonderful. So, aside from the obvious awesomeness of the clothes that we're going to see, I know that you have had a lot of traction on Instagram. So, can you tell me a little bit about, in the last 6 or so months, you know, the kind of response you've gotten on Instagram and the kind of people that you're hearing from, and what's kind of, you know, you're building excitement, obviously, about this exhibit to come, and
yeah.
I'd like to hear about that.
Sure. You know, when we did the podcast and the interview in March, I had around 300 followers on Instagram. And we're up to like 1,060 today, which is great. You know, I mean, it's a slowly,
but they're real followers.
But they're real followers.
Yeah, it's organic. Like people are
organic.
really interested.
Yeah, it is organic. Yeah. None of these followers were bought or whatever.
No,
you know,
that's what you need anyway.
Yeah,
real interest.
And a big thank you for, you know, some of the followers are following us because one of the biggest The Nanny Instagram accounts there is supported us and put us on in their stories and told the people it's what Fran wore.
Oh, that's got. You know, I've read about that. The press. I follow them.
So I've emailed Shanae Brown is her name, and we spoke sometime via email and stuff. And she loves what we do, and she supported us, and she kind of you know. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I can't finish that sentence. She put us in her stories and told people to follow us. Yeah.
Great. So, well, that is such a fun account. And now yours is becoming as fun as that one, you know?
I wish. I can just hope, you know, that someday people will see what we do and love what we do. And, I mean, it's going to be a huge, it's going to be a lot of fun going to this exhibit. It's not going to be a plain white room with mannequins and the clothes, you know, not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that I want this to be an experience you'll never forget. And as
maybe
much fun
interactive,
as
maybe?
Yes, okay. Of course, yeah. It's going to be a photo option, like options and stuff. And it's going to be, you can even like, I think there's even going to be something like a try-on corner, you know, like a fitting room where you can try on some of the pieces that you see on display.
Oh, wow.
And take pictures, and you know, so you're going to walk out with a lot more information on the clothes and the show, and a lot more pictures on your phone that you'll love, and hopefully come back, you know.
So now you have said that you've had some offers from people around the world.
Yeah.
So this really is been a global interest, it sounds like, in what you're doing, and the clothes are being literally sourced from everywhere, every point of the world, if you think of it that way.
We source them from Azerbaijan and America and England and Italy, and you know, from like Far East to Far West. It's like all over the world, people are interested, and not only selling this stuff, like the costumes, but also like, you know, loaning it. So we have people from Austria, we have people from, I don't know, all over the world. which is great.
And thank goodness for technology, because
Right.
that is the single, I think, most important factor in being able to recreate a collection fairly quickly and find it, because now anyone with a phone can just click a picture or two and upload something that's for sale, and hopefully it's a site that will ship globally. Not all of them. There's a lot of local sites out there, so you're limited. But for the sites that aren't just local, I mean, you click a button and there's something from any part of the world. And I know from my own sourcing activities for my vintage Moschino collection, it has literally come from everywhere, even places like, why is that there? Like the Mondrian jacket that I have came from a seller on Depop. It's the only thing I've ever bought on Depop, I think.
Okay.
And do you know that one, that site?
No.
Okay. It's global. And it just, I don't know, there it was. And I kept looking. I'm like, that's so hard to find. And I must have looked at that jacket for a couple of days. And finally I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to buy it, because
it took you that long.
It took me a couple of days.
It only took me like half an hour. I saw that and I pushed the purchase button.
Yeah, well, it wasn't inexpensive. That's one that you pay a premium for sure.
I did pay a premium.
But there it was, and I was just like, okay, there it is. I've been wanting it, so I'll get it. And I've seen it a few other places, but I wasn't fast enough.
Really, I haven't. That's the reason why it took.
I wasn't fast enough. But
I snatched it away from you.
I know. But I don't have the dress. I hear there's pants, and so we'll see.
I didn't even know there were pants.
I know. But it makes sense. It makes sense that there would be a pants.
Yeah, I know of the dress. I've seen the dress online. I think it's still available for purchase, but it's also like a premium price, So
it's also a less wearable piece, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you can pop that jacket on. We'll have our sidebar. You pop that jacket on, and it's as wearable today as when it was made. And that's what's so great about Moschino, is that these clothes. I've worked so much with vintage clothing that there are some styles that are dated, and they're going to be dated for a long time. But there are certain styles that have remained relevant, like the boxy cut jacket that Moschino's ripoff of, or nod to, depending on how you want to spin it. It was really a nod, not a ripoff. It was a nod to Chanel, the boxy cut. And that couldn't be more popular. Right now is that boxy cut. The more fitted jackets, some of them have a more modern style to them, but some of them are truly ultra dated and ultra 80s, but you can still wear them, but you may have to tailor it. So what I love about vintage Moschino is that any of these jackets you can wear right now with a pair of jeans or a pair of pants and just rock it, Yes, a turtleneck. Exactly. And just rock the look. Unfortunately, the Mondrian jacket I have does not fit me. It's not my size, sadly. And I once had a piece in my size. It was really hard to get, that I found out later it was hard to get, but it was in the beginning when I was sourcing, and I didn't know it was hard to get. And I sold my size. And I'm still upset because I haven't seen the jacket again in any size, much less my size. Okay. And it was kind of disappointing, but it's out there. But anyway, we digress into our love of Moschino here for a moment.
Most of the pieces that I have, I can't wear, but luckily the Mondrian jacket fits me perfectly. And I don't know. I think I have it on Instagram. I wore it to the Cancer Schmancer Cabaret cruise last year, and it's just a fun outfit.
It is fun.
I love it so much. Like, this is my favorite piece that I own, and I will never give it away.
Okay, I like the one
rip it out of my cold dead hands.
I still like the black wool gabardine jacket with the crystal question marks on it.
Yeah. That you're obsessed with that jacket.
I have not seen it anywhere, and it's not that I have or have not been looking for it. I haven't seen it in my eye travels.
I've only seen it once, and I hit the purchase button, and it was really, really reasonable.
I remember this is how old I am. Okay, so I remember in the 80s when all of this came out, this
Mhm.
embellishment. And I remember that Escada had a version of that jacket
Wow.
as well as Moschino.
Mhm.
And then there were like what you call ripoffs of people would copy. And I remember there was one that I owned that was black wool, and then but all the question marks or whatever the designs on it was embroidered into the fabric.
Mhm.
And I got rid of that thing, and now I'm just kicking myself because it was very iconic at the time,
Yeah.
and very expensive at the time. Just, I mean, that same jacket today would be thousands and thousands of dollars because of what it would take to create it. But what's interesting is that these clothes do survive. Um, in this economy that we're in, that's all about reuse, recycle, repurpose. It's about giving new life to what's already out there. And obviously, what you're doing with the exhibit is more than giving it new life. You're giving its life back. You're basically putting the respect back into the brand and back into their pieces. And as I've said on many other podcasts, there's a really strange thread that goes through retail from runway to the recycling bin, and somehow that same piece that's you know uh, fashion page of New York Times, it's a runway piece, it ends up in Bergdorf Goodman, and then eventually it's on the clearance rack, and eventually it's at the outlet mall, and eventually it's sold off or in someone's closet, and decades later you can literally find it in the Goodwill. And so it's the same piece. And so what happens? So in an effort for giving life back in pieces as someone who's a reseller and someone who's a collector, you grab that piece, you yank it back out into the world, dry clean it, refresh it, put it on a hanger and say, you know what, this is still amazing. And you know what, I'm going to put an amazing price on it. And because I respect it by putting this price on it, you find the buyer who goes, yeah, I get what you're saying, I'm going to buy that. And I have sold pieces for premium prices to people who get it, who understand, yes, this is still relevant, this is still amazing, this Moschino piece is awesome, that I'd kind of forgotten about. And Moschino is one of those brands that I think people have kind of moved away from. I think after the founder died, I think there was obviously a big shift in that brand. And I don't know. I don't think people don't think about it or have access to it the way they used to be in the department stores. But I am glad to be someone who can stand back and say, this is awesome, this is amazing. And I love that I'll have a few pieces loaned to your exhibit so that other people can, appreciate them as well.
And we appreciate that from you. Yeah.
Awesome.
So much.
Awesome.
We love you for that.
My pleasure. So tell me what else is going on at the exhibit.
Besides the fact that it's going to be one exhibit that has never been seen before, we try to focus on the good thing, the good deed that we are, trying to do with it. The Cancer Schmancer Foundation, and then we're gonna donate some money. Like some of the proceeds are going straight to another charity, like a non-profit organization, which helps people with especially young people and teenagers with depressive disorders. So yeah, this is very important for me because I know, like, this is where I'm coming from. This is what happened. Like for people to understand why I'm putting all this off is like why I'm pulling all this off is because the show and the clothes and like everything that they did on the show helped me a lot with my issues with mental health when I was a teenager. And I just want to bring back the happiness and the joy that this show brought to the people in the 90s with this exhibition, so people can go in and have a good time and do a good deed. They don't even have to like give money. They don't even have to donate money because some of the proceeds are going straight to these nonprofit organizations, and this is something that I'm very proud of, and I wouldn't do it without the thought of donating some of the money that we're making with it.
Well, for those of you who want to learn more about that, in our first podcast with Chris, he talks about what this show means to him, where this all originated. We won't duplicate it, but definitely check that out and hear this very profound and moving story about the nanny and what it meant to him growing up, and kind of brings us to this moment. I think that's great. You're going to include that in there.
I mean, it's not only the fact that I'm a super fan of the show, which has, I wouldn't consider myself the biggest fan anymore of the show, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who are like bigger fans than me, but it's like, it means the world to me that the show exists still to this day, and I'm very happy that there's so many people out there who share that thought with me, and that passion towards the show. And I think it's just the costumes, and I mean, when I was you have to picture me in elementary school, on a break with my best friend, and the Nanny just came out in Germany. It just aired for the first time, and in 1996, I think that was. And we stood in school and talking about the show and the costumes. I can remember that. I was 7 years old.
Wow.
So I remember talking about the fantastic piece of clothing that she wore last night on the when the show was on, and it's crazy. Like if you had told me then that I would own some of the pieces in my 30s or late 20s, I don't know. It's just crazy to think about that.
Now, isn't it true? I read somewhere, heard somewhere that this show has been in syndication nonstop since it aired.
Yeah.
And never stopped.
Never.
So, I mean, you've got people all around the world being introduced every single day to this show.
It was aired in I think over 70 countries. It was dubbed in over 70 languages. So
70.
70
wow.
languages. So
wow,
that's
70.
a thing. That's huge.
Was this dubbed for you? Was it dubbed?
It was dubbed in German.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I started watching it in English when I was about 9 years old. So, because it's different. I don't like to watch something dubbed, but that's a different story. Because I want to see the actor actually, and I want to hear him, what he sounds like, and I want to see him acting and not
I would love to have known what they did with Fran Drescher's voice.
I can show you. It's good. It's actually good. But some of the jokes she cracks doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't.
They don't make any sense.
Yeah,
it's lost in translation because she makes a lot of jokes referring to her voice in English.
Right.
And
that's a good point. It doesn't translate.
It doesn't translate at all. So some of the things, my mom loves to watch The Nanny, but she doesn't speak a word of English, so she watches it in German, and she doesn't laugh. She's like, why are they laughing? Because the audience is playing in the background, laughing all the time. I was like, I don't get it. Why are they laughing? I was like, because in English she just cracked a joke that they didn't translate into German. So there you go. But it's fun. I mean, she's a big fan too, and I mean, everybody I know is a big fan.
I know there have been articles about whether or not they would reboot it, and there's so many shows being rebooted or changed or whatever, and not that you can ever recreate that magic because everything has changed. Times have changed, the cast have changed, the writers have changed.
They got married and had kids. What is it about a nanny nowadays?
But I would be in favor of something similar. If they could figure out how to do it, I would completely watch it. I would be right there. Look, I've watched Netflix.
Yeah.
There's a lot of substandard programming out there. And because if you're not going to kind of redo what's already there, you got to kind of invent a lot of content, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm all in favor of something related, something relevant. I don't know what that looks like, and neither do they, because smarter people than me talk about this all the time. But I would love to see something happen. Yeah, I mean, the last season was underwhelming with the.
Yeah.
It was, you know what it is? Do you remember?
Good
Did you ever see this American show called Moonlighting?
Oh no.
It had Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis in it, and there was this. It's the same thing that happened in The Nanny.
Cher.
No, Sybil Shepherd.
Sybil
Shepherd.
Yeah, I know
and
her.
then Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
So this show Moonlighting, and we digress off topic, but let's make a point. Why, let's have some fun. In this show, there was all this tension between the characters, and in the end, when they finally get together, it completely ruined everything. Yeah. Not only did it ruin it, is that these two characters always were joking with one another. So I thought in the end they would take 5 minutes and be serious, but they didn't. They made it a joke even when they got together. It really ruined the show. And I think whenever you have this tension between characters, it can go awry when they get together. And certainly with The Nanny, when they got together, like you wanted them to get together, but you didn't, right? Yeah. And so the minute that tension is gone, you're like, ugh, now what, right?
And they knew it was going to happen, but they were forced to make them get together.
Yeah, it's married. A shame because it really changes the dynamic. So, but this is what happens in made up things and in the real world. So, but yeah, I know that it definitely took the wind out of that series, and that's fine. There's always a way to pick up a storyline because people figure it out. Game of Thrones, they're trying to figure out what to do with that one, and that last series was pretty underwhelming too. So, we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, so Chris, what else? We've covered a lot of ground. Have I missed anything that people should know about?
I left out some things, but I can't really talk about it now. Okay. So it's just like we have managed to get people involved who could really make it happen the way we, envision it. I can't really talk about it now because it's not for the public ear.
Oh, you can tell me.
No, I can't.
No one's listening.
No.
All right, darn it.
If you put that microphone away, I might tell you. No, but it's great. So we've come a long way ever since we started, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and it's we have I would love to tell you. I would. So I'm
so close.
I'm bursting with excitement, but I can.
Close to being able to announce some things. But I get it. I mean, look, this is a fantastic project. There's a lot of layers pulling off something like this and getting the right people involved. And then it can be all that all of us can imagine it to be. So I completely understand that it takes a while to develop this type of project. And that's to be respected, and thank you for being so good about not saying anything ahead of time. That's to keep it in the bag,
Well, I want it to be happening, I want the exhibit to open its doors. If I tell you now what is going on, it might never happen.
Right. No, I hear you. It's a lot.
I don't want to pee off some people, So.
No, I understand completely, but that's to be expected. But this is a fantastic exhibit. I love the whole idea of it. I cannot wait. I would be going whether I was a part of it or not, because I love the whole idea of this. It seems fun and fresh, and for those of us who grew up watching the show, we'll capture a little bit of our youth back, right?
Yeah. So now that you're involved, you're going to get a ticket to the opening party.
Oh gosh, I'm totally there. Yeah, absolutely, and. And I love that New York is where it's going to take place. I think that's
a reason for that.
Perfectly appropriate.
Because the show took place in New York, even though it was recorded in the Culver Studios in Los Angeles, but they made everything look like it took place in New York.
They did a good job of that, and as someone who lived in New York a long time, 16 years. It's a great city and it's a great backdrop.
I love that city. Every time I go to New York, I'm so happy to be there. It's like it's my favorite place in the world. So there's no better place to open this exhibit than the city of, dreams. Dreams come true. The concrete jungle of dreams.
I love it. So. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being with me today in Pasadena.
Thank you for having me again.
This is Chris Brempel. Now, remind people where they can find you, obviously on Instagram. You do have a website. It's more of like a informational site, right?
Yeah, you can subscribe to the newsletter. Okay. Just bear in mind that there's like not a lot news so far. So
a lot of newsletters going out just yet.
But we're getting
get in early, as they say.
And so yeah, they can find me on Instagram. Us on Instagram. We have the website. We have a Facebook page, and that's basically it. And everybody can contact me, get in touch, tell me about what they think and how they like it or dislike things. We open for criticism, and it's a people's project, and we want to keep it that way.
So open for ideas.
If you like own a piece that she wore on air and want to loan to the exhibit, you're mostly welcome. If you have thoughts or anything you want to share with us, do it.
I love it. And Chris is totally accessible. I know that from being in touch with him, and I think it's great that the word's getting out, and I just think what you're doing is wonderful. So, Chris, thank you again for being with us today here in sunny, very sunny Pasadena in November.
Thank you for
and
having me.
It's actually hot outside. I mean, if you can imagine.
It is amazing. It is I think it's like 82 degrees.
No, it's incredible.
And it's November 4th. I mean,
I've had some cold winters in New York, so I can appreciate.
Stay here?
He doesn't want to go back.
I don't want to go back.
Well, with the internet, I
wouldn't even want to go to New York now. It's like I just want to stay in Los Angeles, like California.
I don't blame you. Well, that's it. Well, thank you again, Chris. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to hear the previous podcast with Chris, if you go to the March 2019, you will find it there. And and I will be reporting back as updates come, and Chris is back in the area. He's coming here periodically to get this organized. There's a lot of planning going on behind the scenes, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and happy to bring you to my audience. Thank you, Chris. And again, Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations, and we look forward to being with you on a future episode.